Welcome to the Microscopists, a bite-sized bio podcast, hosted by Peter O'Toole, sponsored by Zeiss Microscopy. Today on the Microscopists.
Today on the Microscopists, Erin Tranfield from the VIB in Ghent gives us her advice on what it takes to become a great microscopist.
Chemistry wasn't super exciting for me either. The irony is, I would say to be a good microscopist, you need to understand the physics of your microscope, the chemistry of your sample prep, and the biology of your questions. So I haven't escaped those two fields yet.
She shares her personal story of incredible determination.
I went horseback riding with a few friends and it didn't go well, we'll put it that way. And I fell from the horse and crushed 3 areas of my spine. And as a consequence, I have a pretty serious spinal cord injury.
And proves that you can excel despite enormous setbacks.
It was partially challenging, but it was really fun to build a core facility from zero. And that's what I did in Portugal. I really brought together equipment and teams and people and did a lot of training.
All in this episode of The Microscopists. Hi, welcome to The Microscopists. I'm Peter O'Toole, and today I'm joined by Erin Tranfield from VIB in Ghent, which is a new job for you, Erin.
Yeah, today's Friday number 2, and the first full week number 1. So yeah, it's been quite the change. Country number 5, I'm collecting them.
Wow. Country number, 1 minute. So this is country number 5 in your jobs. So,
well, in my life, I count where I was born as well.
Which is where?
Canada.
So you got Canada, US, Portugal,
Germany, Portugal. Yeah.
And now Belgium. 5. Do you know, it's going to be interesting. I've got some questions around those 5 countries.
Yeah, and you can also add Costa Rica and China in there if you want, but I was only in those for less than 6 months, so they don't count.
Oh, that's quite a long time, though.
Mm-hmm.
How come they were so short?
I was in Costa Rica I need to think about it. After undergrad, I was doing a volunteer program. So this was very cool. And in China, I was there as part of the International Space University. And I was teaching in Beijing in 2007.
In China?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds rather cool.
It was. We got to watch them build the bird's nest just before the Olympics. So that was quite exciting.
That does sound really cool. Now then, so there's just 2 things actually. So obviously you just started a job at the VIB in Ghent. Mm-hmm. And by coincidence, today I think is International Women's Day.
It is. Yes.
And you sent me this image today, which is of you. And if I open this up, it should pop up on my screen if my computer starts playing ball again.
We'll see. This is Saskia and I, yes.
So I like the fact that I get between both of you.
Yeah, you are well positioned. Zeiss might not be happy with you as you're blocking their microscope, but that's okay.
Come on, I'm better looking than their microscope.
That's true. That's true.
So Saskia was obviously leading the VIB core.
And she has stepped up to Deputy Director of all technologies now, leaving this beautiful position for me to step into. I'm very lucky, but I have first the shoes of Chris Guerin and now the shoes of Saskia to fill. It's slightly intimidating. My imposter is having a fit.
So interesting. So you mentioned Chris as well. Actually interesting. My time with VIB, my influence at VIB, maybe that's a good way to word it, goes way back to 2003.
Oof.
Before Chris.
Really?
Before Chris. And the person looking after their confocals was Eve.
Yes, and she's still here. She's a master. She's been babysitting me all week. That woman is a rock star.
So, and she came over on she came over on my very first confocal microscopy course I ever ran.
Wow. Well, I hope to come and visit one of yours in the future too, as I'm trying to go from the world of electrons to photons and sound intelligence. So I have a journey.
So, well, yeah. You have a journey in microscopy. You've had a journey on a personal scale as well.
I collect them, apparently, like countries.
So let's take you back. We've just heard a bit about going to the China and the space side of things. When you were a child, going way back, what was the first job that you ever aspired towards?
I think I wanted to be a veterinarian, and this is because I grew up on a farm. I am a farm girl from the west coast of Canada, or Western province of Canada. And I thought that was a great idea until, admittedly, we had this lovely vet come up, and she was quite short, and she had to get in and turn the calf because the calf was breached. And she stuck her hand way up, and her nose landed in a very unfortunate place, and then the cow pooed. And I was like, "Ooh, maybe I don't want to try that."
Oh,
So that was the end of my aspirations to be a vet. Then for a while, I wanted to be a doctor. That stuck for even longer. And I always swore I would be the first woman on the moon. So there was the space from the very beginning. But when you grow up with the Milky Way over your head and Northern Lights all throughout your life, you can't help but love the stars above you.
oh. Now you just made me really envious.
Yeah, you can come visit. It's a great location. My mom still has the farm, and it's my hiding place. When I need to think, the best place is the farm. Your nearest neighbor is a 15-minute walk, so you have ultimate silence.
So you have chosen a very different career to your parents. How do your
Yes.
parents feel about your career? How do they comprehend your career?
I was really fortunate with my parents. So my mom was the first person in her family to do a master's, I think. She ended up being the vice principal of a high school long before women were considered normal to be leaders in the teaching profession, I would say. And she had the attitude, and she would drive me nuts with this, but she would say to me, "You can't get what you don't apply for, so you have to apply for everything." And I realized how lucky that was, because I think many women are intimidated to apply, where I had my mom chasing me constantly, apply and try and do. And so she really supported me. My dad was never quite sure what I did. He was a carpenter by trade, and then went on to become an instructor of carpentry at the local college. And so this whole business of medicine, he wasn't sure about. He wanted me to be a nurse so I could take care of him when he got old. And actually I did. I took care of him until he passed away. But my mom was really the champion, and she still is. If I write something, she edits it. She edited my PhD thesis, and she found the best mistake that a scientist could ever make, which was I wasn't imaging my results. I was imagining them. 2 extra letters that means so much.
Yeah,
So that was a good typo she found for me.
well, I don't know if you ever notice if you run someone's experiment that the U and the I are next to each other on a keyboard. So you just got a slight error and you ruin someone's
Yes,
experiment.
exactly.
I've often offered to ruin people's experiments on their behalf, completely by accident.
Oops.
Uh, so from that, how did you fall into, what was your first degree in?
I did an undergrad at the University of Victoria in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, on biology.
Why biology?
Because I hated physics. I could do it, but I hated it. And chemistry, I don't know. Just chemistry wasn't super exciting for me either. The irony is, I would say, to be a good microscopist, you need to understand the physics of your microscope, the chemistry of your sample prep, and the biology of your questions. So I haven't escaped those two fields yet. But biology just seemed like the right calling for me. And at that point, I was still chasing the idea of becoming a medical doctor. So it was the first step.
So when did that desire to chase being a medical doctor stop?
I applied to the MD PhD program at the University of British Columbia, and I was accepted into both, but not the combined program, and they made me pick. And when I had applied, I told my PhD supervisor, at that point, he was actually my master's supervisor, that if I had to, I wasn't going to abandon my degree. So by necessity, I stuck with the PhD. And in many ways, I'm glad I did, because I wouldn't be where I am today. I never would have traveled. I wouldn't be on Country 5. I wouldn't be married to a Swiss husband for sure. The world is very different. I call my PhD certificate my international passport. It takes you around the world.
So from Canada, from your degree, your PhD was covered within that, but then your postdoc Where was your postdoc and what was that in?
So stepping back, my PhD was looking at how air pollution affects the heart. And this is something that then was very rare. I'm quite entertained actually right now because there's so many newspaper articles about how people are dying from air pollution. I'm going, yeah, hi, 20 years ago, people. Good thing you've caught up now. But when I did my PhD, it was a very rare field. So it was relatively unknown. In the middle of my PhD, I found out about the International Space University, and I asked my PhD supervisor if I could take 3 months off and go to France, because that's where it was that summer, and attend the summer program, which was a 12-week program all about space. And the reason I wanted to do this was just because I'm a nerd, and I thought it would be super cool. And when I went to ISU and the SSP, the summer studies program, that's what it was called then. I found out that NASA was very interested in how dust of any kind affects the human body. So my research trajectory, what I was doing in my PhD, was exactly what they wanted to do with lunar dust. The dust is a much more exotic sample than air pollution, but the methodology is identical. So I went from doing my PhD at the University of British Columbia in Canada to doing my first postdoc at NASA Ames Research Center in California. And I spent 2 years there studying how lunar dust, and actual lunar dust, not just the simulants, affects the lungs, the eyes, and the skin.
So you sent me some pictures and very envious pictures. None of them looking at dust.
No, sorry. Because, I mean, you're at NASA, you're doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, so I take it this is a simulator of some sort?
Yeah, so at NASA Ames, they have one of the only vertical motion simulators. And this was one of the times I got to sit in it. And I actually got to fly it in the vertical motion setting. So this is where it moves in all directions.
Yeah.
And it's just damn cool. There's no other words for it.
Flying?
So this simulation was just a picture. I was just in the seat. I think this is the first time I saw it. When I did the simulation, I was landing on the lunar surface. And I can tell you the first time I crashed it so badly, they had to reset the computer.
They literally crashed the computer as well.
I crashed
the simulation.
I crashed the whole thing. But the second time I landed actually quite well, apparently. I think they were just being nice that they didn't have to restart the computer again, but...
And actually, I think my favorite picture is one, which is you, I presumably, actually, is it the space shuttle?
Yeah, it's the space shuttle. This was, it was being prepared for launch.
That is me. I want to be there.
Yeah, it was super cool. And we got to walk all around it. And if you go to the other side quickly, you'll see that I don't have any jewelry on. And if you know me, you know that there's always something. Even the nose ring is gone there, because you could not go anywhere near the space shuttle with any metal, even if it's attached to you. So they made us strip everything. My PhD supervisor, Dr. David Loftus, he had to tie his glasses on his head so they couldn't possibly fall off. It was very interesting to do a visit there and to see the shuttle.
I'm intrigued. Why is it so important to remove all metal?
Because it could fall somewhere that's innocuous, that doesn't make a difference at that moment. But when you go into space, you're dealing with microgravity, everything can float around, and it could end up somewhere that's quite dangerous. And so at least that's my interpretation of why you don't want it to be there. So
okay. And you also looked at some of the robot landing or potential landing.
Yeah, so this is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and we were there. So this is the cousin of Spirit and Opportunity, and they had a third rover here. And you can see this is in their Mars simulant room. This is with a special simulant that's supposed to mimic Martian soil. And anytime Spirit or Opportunity would get stuck, the teams would come to this room and try and practice getting them moving or unstuck, deal with whatever problem they were. So what I love about this picture is you realize how big Spirit and Opportunity both were. They were actually quite large rovers on the lunar surface. And we were working with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory because we were putting together proposal for a small instrument that would go to the lunar surface and sample lunar dust and bring it back so we could study it.
So you'd be bringing and that's then the microscopy of the dust itself. And would you then be using the dust for inhalation experiments and looking at lung damage as well with the same dust?
Exactly. So the challenge with lunar dust is that the challenge with the whole lunar environment is you have no weathering properties, you have no wind, you have no rain. You have a lot of micrometeorite bombardment. So as a consequence, what you get is fracturing of the material that's on the lunar surface. It becomes quite sharp, quite jagged. It never gets rounded. So how this will impact the lungs is an interesting question. There's also something called nanophase iron, which is iron to a 0 charge. And this is only found on Earth in industry. Humans are not typically exposed to this kind of material. So there was also a question on how nanophase iron would affect health, and if it could become dangerous when inhaled. The good news of all of the studies we did is that it seems as if it's not a dramatically toxic material, which is very good for lunar exploration. The biggest challenge of lunar dust is actually that sharp, jagged texture that I talked about, because it tends to destroy the seals of spacesuits and spacecrafts and habitats. And that's why we were looking again to resample lunar material, was because the material that was brought back to Earth, all of the containers leaked. So it was exposed to oxygen, which changed the surface chemistry, which made it so that it's not like the authentic dust. So you couldn't study it from a reactive oxygen species and toxicity standpoint.
Yes, yeah, you don't think of all these difficulties straight off. It's quite complex when you think about just getting the samples back and then working with the samples. So you'd have to have your anaerobic chambers, I guess, to be operating within them, like you would your anaerobic bacteria, similar sort of chambers, and then get them into the microscope at that point. So microscopes, what was your first microscope? When did you fall in love with microscopy?
I love microscopy. I think microscopy and space exploration are not that different. It's just that one looks out to the big and one looks down to the small, but the concept of exploring is identical. So if I couldn't go out, then I can go little, and it's perfect. My first microscope, I have no idea. I'm really terrible. I did my PhD using, I think by that point it was owned by FEI, a Technite 12 when they were first released.
Yeah.
Brand new, hot off the press, really early models. We used to have an old Philips in the lab, but it had died. All electron microscopes in this case. I do remember when the first confocal was installed in the lab, but only approved people were allowed near it, and I was not one of them. So I don't even know what confocal it was.
Good grief. And yeah, so we the first TM that I was responsible by was actually a Technite.
Very nice.
So and we had it up until just, and then it actually got flooded from the inside, but don't go there because that's quite a difficult job to work out how that happens. But it did. But we thank
Poor
the
microscope.
for helping us on that.
Oh, it causes me pain to see these lovely instruments damaged or even retired. They're amazing.
Yeah, but it happens.
It
does happen. So from NASA and your postdoc and all that space side of things, what happened next?
So I was really fortunate in that, I missed microscopes. I wasn't doing a ton of microscopy at NASA. I was doing all kinds of cool stuff, but not microscopy. And one of the ladies who worked with me at NASA Ames, Sigrid Reinsch, she had done her postdoc at EMBL in Heidelberg. And she said, you should look at this. And I thought, okay. And then I looked online, and they had a position posted for someone to do electron microscopy at EMBL Heidelberg, studying the 3D architecture of the meiotic spindle. And I thought, ooh, that sounds cool. I know EM. And so I applied, and I applied to the laboratory of Claude Antony. Unfortunately, Claude lost my application, which was quite funny and was a precursor of many adventures with Claude in the future. Sigrid eventually emailed him and said, "Oi, Claude, you should check out this application," because the posting never went down, so they hadn't filled it. And very urgently, I was invited to come to Embl to have an interview, and it went very well. And then I made the move across the ocean. That was a daunting move. I had 2 suitcases and I packed up all my stuff and I thought, good grief, what have I done? And here we go. And I flew across the ocean and landed in Germany and thought, oh my.
So you were by yourself still, you were still single at that point.
Completely, yeah.
So you've done Canada, US, now to Germany. How daunting was it coming from Canada, US? And if you there will be cultural differences, but it maybe isn't as massive as coming into a European culture.
Yeah, I came as a North American with all of the silly things that you think of, the biases. I didn't understand the nuances of Europe. I didn't understand that, Belgium and the Netherlands can be closer than 2 provinces in Canada, and yet there can be a cultural world between the two. This didn't make sense to me because Canada from east to west, there's some things. We make fun of the Newfoundlanders on the West Coast because they say funny things, but generally we have the same culture, the same attitude. So there were so many little differences I didn't expect. I was younger and more foolish, or more brave maybe then, and it was easier. Now as I get older, this transition from Portugal to Belgium hasn't been an easy one. It's, you get settled as you get older, you get happy with where you are. It's not as easy to pack up and start again, but
okay. So when you've only been there 2 weeks over in Belgium, what have you found most challenging so far then?
It's a really good question. We're struggling at this point to find an apartment or a place to rent. I think that's quite normal in the post-COVID housing market anywhere in the world, but it's a lot harder to find apartments and places to call home. And this has the added challenge. We'll come to this at some point, but now with my injury and my disability, I looked at a house today that had what I call the death stairs, these spiral staircases that there's no way I can function with stairs like this with my injury. So I think finding a house will be the biggest challenge for us here. The team is fantastic and incredibly welcoming. The lab is amazing in terms of technology. So I have little complaints. Yes, they all are. Today, you can see same green shirt. This is a very current shirt.
Your team. So those listening, this is the team that Erin has inherited.
Yes, and I am so fortunate to work with such an amazing group of professionals and experts. I don't want to be their boss because they're phenomenal. I'm just happy to be their colleague in their midst. So we did this today for International Women's Day, and yes, the men are in the picture because I think it's important to recognize that men are also part of pushing women forward. So we did both, the girls only picture and then the whole team.
Is that everyone on the team?
That's everyone. We are a group of 10 now. This is because the core used to be bigger, but there's been a new core created recently for spatial imaging. And so several of the old members had left the core because they're taking on the spatial challenge.
Which is why I'm looking for Evelyn and can't find
Yes,
Evelyn.
and she runs the spatial core. That's why. You haven't lost her. She's still with us.
I was thinking I'm going to have to ask after what's happened to Evelyn.
No,
Can't lose Evelyn. Why split the core? Yeah. Our core does spatial.
Well, we're gonna collaborate and work together, of course, but I think it's just to sort of compartmentalize tasks and roles and help users understand who to talk to and where to go. So we'll see, Pete. We'll see.
Wait till I talk to Saskia.
Yeah, talk to Saskia.
So you mentioned your accident and your disabilities now that you're getting stronger, I would say, still. So obviously for the audience, many may not know the backstory to this.
So what happened? Yeah. In 2017, I went for what was supposed to be a restful weekend adventure. I went horseback riding with a few friends, and it didn't go well, we'll put it that way. And I fell from the horse and crushed 3 areas of my spine. And as a consequence, I have a pretty serious spinal cord injury. When I had the accident, the doctors told me I would not walk again. I walk, I call it turtling. It's maybe appropriate. I have green on today because I'm quite slow, but I still get around and I'm still able to cause quite a bit of mischief. So I manage.
So you sent, and this was a very serious. This was, you said it quite flippantly, sort of this happened, and yet you sent a picture, and there's you with, you can't even see anyone because the number of cables, tube coming out of you with a huge number. So actually, I wouldn't know that was you underneath that mesh
it is
of
me.
cabling. And I think you can never beat a good X-ray, can you?
No, but
that's what expertise. Here you are.
Yeah. So you can see they've done a fusion around L1. This is the first of the 3 vertebrae I crushed. Thank goodness I don't have neurological damage at that level because I probably would not be walking.
And so this is your spine.
Yeah, that's my spine.
And the screws are all good. That's credit to the surgeons that actually managed to do this thing.
Oh, my surgeon is a rock star. Dr. Naoud, he's this amazing human being. I felt so very fortunate to have met him on the day of my injury. And to this day, he almost becomes a friend. Really quite an amazing soul. And so he put that fixation in, and it's still in there. I call it my art installation piece, just to try and put a positive spin on this whole mess. But yeah, so, at times, if I want to be cheeky, I can tell users, don't fight with me. I have a spine of steel, and there we go.
So is this the only bridging you have, or do you have other bridgings elsewhere?
No, it's the only bridging. The other damage is in the sacrum, the lower, like the tailbone area, and the lower parts of the spine. And there they didn't put in a bridge. So they made me lay flat for 10 days to try and get some of the bones to fuse. And that was exciting because I had to learn how to eat flat. And in Portuguese hospitals, they bring you things like a whole entire fish. How do you dissect a fish or eat a fish when you're flat on your back and you're just kind of peering over the tray at your meal? But yeah, I had to lay flat for 10 days. And then I spent in total about 6 weeks in the hospital. And then I spent 4 straight months in the rehabilitation center where they taught me how to walk. And I recognize how lucky I was because I was one of the few people who rolled into that rehabilitation center in a wheelchair and ultimately walked out badly. Admittedly, I didn't walk very well when I left, but I was walking. So,
and actually, so we've got a joint friend with Chris Garin who's
suffering a challenge himself.
He has a challenge himself at the moment, and actually, so you were sending emails via me to read out to Chris, and so I learned even more about your time and the fact that you're living proof that you can get lucky, but to remain determined to make sure that luck comes to fruition and to speed up that recovery. And Chris is getting there.
Yeah,
we'll talk about Chris afterwards and stuff, but I think that's really motivational for Chris to keep that in mind. So some of the words you were saying to him were very motivational to him. I should probably go back and reread those because I think his short-term memory then wasn't so great. So he may forget bits. But we do keep saying, don't forget this, don't forget that within it.
But it's really important. It was one of the challenges I had because as you can imagine, with all the things I've done and all the countries I've been to and travel I've done, I'm not used to sitting still. And suddenly here I was at the mercy of the medical system around me and a body that didn't work. And so you first have to really accept the situation you're in. There's no point in fighting it, but there is a point of fighting to get better. And so, following the instructions, doing the physio, showing up every morning, even when you don't want to. So to this day, which is it's 2017, coming up to 7 years since my injury, I still do physio almost every single day. It was one of the key things with moving here. How do I move as little stuff as possible and yet still have in place a mechanism that I can do enough physio that I don't go backwards?
Was it in those early days, was there ever a moment where you thought you wouldn't walk again? You were told you wouldn't? Did you accept that at any point or start thinking they're right? Well, I'm going to try. What?
So this comes back to the lovely Dr. Naoud, my surgeon. He said to me, he said to me, I see potential in you. You have the right signs. It's possible. Fight for it. It was essentially the message he gave me. And I really did. I thought, okay, he sees something I don't. And same with several of the nurses. They said, you have the right attitude. You have the right mental approach. Fight for what you can get back and you'll be fine. And I remember thinking, I don't know how that's going to happen. I remember it being a huge deal when I could lay in bed and just pull up my legs so that my knees were like a V. Before that, they would just slide back down because I had no control over my legs. And I remember my mom and my husband, Eva, we were there. We were all celebrating that I could tense my knees. Woo, big deal. But you got to celebrate each little step. And yeah, I guess I never listened to the negative comments because they would just pull you down. I just fought for what I wanted and then accepted what I couldn't overcome some days. I say this very courageously. Don't think I don't have little temper tantrums sometimes when everything goes wrong, because it does. And then I'm grumpy. But
I've during that time of the recovery, I sort of having this keen interest at the moment. How many plateaus did you get to? And when you hit those plateaus, did the seeds of doubt think, actually, that's as far as I'm going to get? Did that ever occur to you?
Yes. I don't know how many plateaus I had. One thing that was very good about the physiotherapists I worked with is they were constantly changing the exercises. And it's just like when I used to train to hike or to run or to do half marathons. Just when you get to a point where you're stable, you change your whole routine and it's hard again. And then you kind of get past that plateau where you shift in a different direction. So they helped me do this. I think because I'd done so many sports before my accident, I was a runner and a hiker, and I was never sitting still. I was never fast. I was never good. I would never win a race, but I was never on the couch. That attitude, I think, also really helped because they would tell me, okay, do 10 weights, and I do 20, just because I was used to you. You're not going to get better if you just sit there waiting for someone to fix you. You have to do the hard work.
I love that competitive edge to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was against myself. It wasn't against anyone else. It was just push the envelope.
Yeah, but also, train harder and work harder too. Did you fear for your career?
The accident definitely impacted my career initially. I couldn't travel. It's still very hard at times to go to conferences. There's days like you didn't see me when we did the Gordon conference for Volume EM, 11 hours on a flight to the west coast of the US. I could barely stand up by the time I got there. And then to do the whole Gordon conference, I couldn't sit. I could not sit. I could not really lay down. It was horrible. So this definitely affects my work, but I think by being open about the situation and transparent, most people are extremely understanding. And the microscopy community has proven 100 times over how incredibly supportive they were. I mean, when I had the accident, I received so many flowers from colleagues. I had to ask people to stop sending them because the nurses were annoyed I had so many flowers in my room. I mean, what an amazing problem to have. So it just goes to show that I think we are very fortunate with who we work with, that they rally and they support us in amazing ways.
So, it was interesting. You sent one picture on show
with me in a wheelchair at the microscope. Yeah.
Yes. And how so this actually is a slightly different question then. How accessible were the microscopes themselves, the microscopy labs? Were they already pretty accessible?
Microscope was good because you were meant to sit there at a wheelchair or at a chair. It doesn't matter if it rolls or not. Actually, most of our chairs roll anyway, but in a different way. Processing benches, too high. Changing the filament on the gun would be a challenge for me because I wouldn't be able to open it. Oil pump changes, all of these things would probably be a challenge. So I would need someone to help me more with the technical stuff. In Portugal, because we were such a small lab, I really did a lot of the basic maintenance on equipment, and that I went back to doing that, but I had to figure out ways of doing it that was safe, because as you can imagine, I can't lift quite as much as I did, and I can't move in quite the way I did. And I lost both calf muscles, so I can't go on my toes, which is really irritating when you're trying to get to the top of the microscope or
I
you're
was
trying to
going to say,
open it.
how do you do the filaments and get the red
I'm a
eye
giant,
assembly out?
Pete. There's advantages of being almost 1.90 meters tall. So, or for the North American listeners, 6'3", 6'4". So I'm so tall that I could still open the gun without going on my toes. I can still take out the screws at the top of the FEI microscope without having to climb on the desk. But yeah, it's a challenge. I'd say the things that were less accessible are the conferences are sort of accessible, but not in a super friendly way. They actually work for people in wheelchairs, but they're harder, I think, for people like me who are slow walkers who don't want to walk kilometers from one end of the conference center to the other and back again to get my coat at the reception. And these kinds of things I had to figure out how to manage my energy.
Yeah. And so actually thinking of conferences, what is your favorite conference?
I know what you want me to tell you. This is a loaded question.
No, it's not.
MMC is a very good conference, Pete. I do enjoy it.
Jolly good.
Very good, yes.
But what's your favorite conference?
It's a great question. I don't know. I really enjoy an extremely small EM meeting in Germany called Panos. It's really just the society members getting together, and it's great because it's all about community. It's all about idea sharing, and it's a one-day meeting. That's a great meeting. The Dreilander meeting or MC meeting that is often between Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. This also is a very good meeting. Yeah, I don't know. To be very honest, I love conferences. You're not going to get a favorite out of me because really being together with a bunch of other microscopy people is just a joy.
So on that note of other microscopy people, part of your new job actually isn't just running the electron microscopy side, but also the light microscopy side.
Yes,
So there's a whole new world.
exactly. I need to learn photons. Oh dear.
So how daunting is that?
Well, I have a secret weapon, which is my husband, who's a light microscopist. And so he can translate for me when I'm too embarrassed to ask anyone else. And this is a very nice luxury to have. It was more daunting, actually, before I arrived. Now that I'm here and I realize the level of expertise that is already within the VIB core, it's much less intimidating. Amanda and F, they're phenomenal and they're extremely welcoming and forgiving when I make really dumb suggestions. I think I'm going to be surrounded by amazing supporters, and I'm looking forward to actually breaking into the light microscopy world a bit. I'll be at ELMI this year, so I'll get to see the other side.
That's why you don't have a favorite conference yet.
I haven't been to it.
You see, that's why.
It could be, yeah.
This will be interesting for you actually, because I went through a similar. I had the LM, but not the EM to start with, and I went into the EM. But I had no shame. I had again excellent team. Meg Stark back then, and Karen Hodgkinson joined after, and I could ask any dumb question. I think that actually empowered them a bit more to realize it was a more mutual relationship, and it wasn't on the boss. It was. I relied on their expertise, and I still rely on their expertise. And even my light microscopists in some areas have expertise beyond my expertise in certain areas. Not many, but certain areas. And I'll lean on them, which is good. So, and you have to get on our confocal course, because that'll teach you loads about the generals of light microscopy as well. So you have to get on our course.
I would love to. It would be a pleasure.
Come on, got to get September. Look out for it.
When is it in September?
Oh,
you're going to have to tell me, because I have
second full week of September, I think, this coming year. But it's every March, April, and September. Okay. So it's around Easter. It's not in Easter weeks either side of it, and one of the first 2 weeks in September every year.
I ask because I also have my other adventure, which is to do the coaching, and I always am part of the GIRBI course for core facility management, and that's also in September. So September often becomes a busy month.
Yeah, we also do really cool management courses.
Okay, I can help. I can help.
No, that's yes. Thank you. That's useful. Who's been your inspirations?
Hmm. Who has been my inspirations? You're always inspired by your colleagues and your peers. I think I always learn from the people I worked with at EMBL, like Rachel Melwig. She was always phenomenal to learn from. My PhD supervisor, of course, Dr. David Walker. Inspirations. I have many broader ones too,
Yep.
interesting people in the public and in the community who I think are
Yeah.
doing really
Go on.
cool things. So I don't know. I think I absorb from everywhere. I'm a little bit of a sponge, to be very honest, in this. I always think that we are a reflection so we as individuals are a combination of all the interesting people we've met and taken the time to understand. And so I try and absorb wherever I can to hear and to listen from other people.
So I've got a few other areas I want to explore. I'm going to ask some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Earlier than
I'm
normal.
going to disappoint you with these because I think I know they're all going to be fun and I'm not.
Are you an early bird or night owl?
Yeah, probably more a night owl.
Did that change after the accident?
Yes, so I used to do much better in the morning, but because of my injury, I don't sleep very well. So mornings are a struggle. I tend to wake up, I would say, between 5 to 8 times a night, which is really disruptive to sleep. So mornings are, it's not easy.
Okay. PC or Mac?
Oh, Mac, that one's easy.
Oh, okay. McDonald's or Burger King?
Neither, rubbish.
So if you had a fast food choice, what would it be?
I don't do fast food. I don't really like quick stuff. And what I loved in Portugal was they would have fast food, which was a roasted chicken and rice, and a salad. And I'm like, perfect. There we're talking.
Okay, so are you a cook or someone who prefers to be cooked for?
Oh, I love to cook. I wouldn't say no to being cooked for, but I really enjoy MacGyvering in the kitchen. It's really just like playing in the lab, except at the end you hopefully get to eat it if it's gone well.
And loaded question. Have you ever cooked a full Christmas dinner
Yes, I did this year.
for the first time?
For the first time. And you know that because you read the email to Chris. That was cheeky.
I know it's cheeky. I've seen pictures.
You've seen pictures.
I have. Tea or coffee?
I like both, but I usually thrive on coffee.
Okay. Beer or wine?
I just moved to Belgium, so that's also a loaded question. From Portugal. I actually do like both. And for a while, I wondered if I should become a sommelier. And for a while, I had threatened to run away and plant grapes all over our farm in Canada when I was threatening to quit science. So I guess I would have to pick more wine if I picked the two, but I do love a very good beer. I will not suffer in Belgium.
No, you definitely won't. No, because you don't even get hangovers on some of the finest Belgian beers. They are awesome. Red or white wine?
I drink more white now, but that's because my injury doesn't I don't do well with tannins and red wine anymore. So
Okay. Chocolate or cheese?
I'm Swiss by marriage. That's not a fair question, Pete.
It is. Go on. You got to. Oh, come on. They're famous for, but come on. You got to do Swiss cheese or Swiss chocolate. Come on. I know you're in Belgium.
And now I'm in Belgium. Oh yeah. So if I had to give up one, I can't. I couldn't do it. I don't think. I love both. I used to say I would run to justify my cheese, chocolate, and wine habits. So there you go.
What would you say is your favorite food? If you were taken out, you're an invited speaker. They take you out for dinner. What would you be hoping will be put in front of you?
You're going to hate this answer, but I would actually hope for something local because I would love to eat food from the place I'm in to learn more about the specialty or the different meals of the place. If I was home in Canada, so we don't really have specialty food because I'm not going to count poutine. I'm on the other side of the country. I would do sushi or probably Indian food.
Okay. Is there anything you don't like to eat?
Mushrooms. My God, I hate mushrooms. Like
Mushrooms of all kinds.
yeah, pretty much. I have this saying that I don't eat anything that grows in, I'm not allowed to say that word because we're not allowed to swear in this podcast, but you can extrapolate. So no mushrooms, thank you very much.
Okay. And you say you like cooking. What would you say is your signature dish?
I'm known for making a lot of soups. I think it's just you take fresh vegetables in season and make, really nice pumpkin soup. Or after Christmas, I turned the turkey into a turkey soup. Or in Portugal, we used to get this, they called it the ugly fruit box or ugly vegetable box. And this was really fun because mysteries vegetables would show up and I'd have to figure out what to do with them. And when all else failed, soup. I could hide them.
TV or book?
Oh, book.
Okay. And are you reading anything at the moment?
I'm reading a few books for the career coaching I do about leadership and personality. And I have a stack. If there's a prize for book hoarder, I might win this book. So I have many books that I will read someday. I'm not sure when that will happen, but
okay. Do you have a favorite film?
no, I don't really watch TV that much.
Oh, wow. So if I asked you what your favorite, you've got no favorite film, no favorite Christmas film?
For Christmas, I would probably pick Scrooge, only because my mom and I used to always watch Scrooge on Christmas morning after we opened all of our presents. So it's more of a family tradition.
Yeah, but that's as good a reason as any, isn't it?
Mm.
That's what Christmas movies are about memories quite often. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
See, and there you say you don't watch films. They're all films.
That's okay. Okay, that's true. But I don't know if it's a favorite. I wouldn't not go outside to stay inside and watch Star Wars. I mean, I've watched Lord of the Rings, love these books. Movies are very good too. But
Okay.
if I had to choose, I'd go outside any day of the week.
So next quick fire, Canada or US?
Canada, eh?
Okay. US or Portugal?
Portugal.
Portugal or Belgium?
Don't know. I haven't been here long enough, but so far the beer is pretty good here, so I'm happy.
Okay, so Belgium or Canada?
I don't know. It's a good question. Home is Canada, so I always have to default, but Belgium's treating me well. So let's see. You'll have to come back in a year and ask.
That was very diplomatic.
I'm Canadian. What can I say, Pete?
And what's your favorite color?
Purple.
Really? And you work in black and white images?
That's true, but that's why we need color around us, I mean, I picked green because I know green looks nice against black and white behind me. It's all strategy.
Favorite EM technique?
I think Clem, because you get to put all of them together. I know I'm cheating, but
No. See, you got your clay, your correlative light, electron microscopy. You can do that technique. Are you hosting the volume EM meeting?
yes.
But Clem's your favorite technique. You're going to be so popular when they find that out.
Don't tell them. Air this afterwards, okay? And actually, we're doing Clem in volume EM, so it's
of course you can do 3D.
Yeah, it's okay.
Actually, what is the meeting called now?
It's the 3D volume EM. Actually, you know what? I don't think I know the name off the top of my head. Ooh, I'm gonna get fired.
Oh, don't worry. I remember the very first one of those. That was daunting because there were some big names around that table.
Yes.
Very big names. So Howard Hess was there, Jeff Lichtman was there, Mark Ellisman was there, Tom Derrick, I think, was there. Jennifer
was there, yeah. I think I was at the first
Julie
one. Yeah.
Was there. Oh, that was cool. I don't know how many years ago that was.
This is, and I was going to tell you, it's more than 10, I think, that they've editions of this conference. So,
which is just amazing. So, of all those techniques, the next question I have for you: cryo-EM or cryo-EM? How cross are you that the structural biologist nicked the word cryo-EM when you can do cryo-EM with an SEM? And now cryo-EM is all about structural biology rather than cryo-EM when it comes to freezing our samples and using it in an EM.
I don't really like the title cryo-EM because every time I type it, it autocorrects to cry EM. And I think that that's sort of indicative of how much of a pain that technique is. I find it's a beautiful technique and it has its time and place, but sometimes it's a fight. So they can have cry or cryo-EM if they want. We'll find new fancy titles.
And I actually said cryo-SEM side of things is maybe not. Actually, do they have that at VIB in Ghent?
Give us a month and the answer will be yes.
Ah,
Mm.
okay. And imagine the plant biologists on the other side of the floor would be.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to exploring the portfolio of what kind of microscopy is done and bringing in some new stuff. We did a ton of plant microscopy in Portugal, and I think maybe we can help serve the community here a bit better once the PIs know what we can do, maybe. So it's going to be a fun couple years where we're exploring new territories.
And do you think you'll miss your team in Portugal?
Oh, I don't think I know. I mean, they were great. One of the ladies, Anna, I worked with her for 10 years. You don't work with someone for 10 years without wanting, without building a relationship and a friendship. I was the boss and she was part of the lab, admittedly. So it was this challenge of leadership at times, but she's an exceptional human being, and it's a privilege that she's actually taken over to head the facility after I left. So I know the facility is in very good hands, but still, yeah, I miss them daily. They're a great group.
Yeah, and did that, when you were choosing to leave, did that actually make the choice harder, knowing that your team couldn't go with you?
Exactly, hugely hard, and that I don't know what the future is there because the institute where I was is closing or now merging with another institute. The future is very unknown, and it felt very much like I was abandoning them to the unknown. It wasn't easy, definitely not, still wasn't. And the months of saying goodbye, of winding down were a challenge as well. But I can only hope it was a good decision for many.
You won't regret going to Belgium. That's for sure. The opportunity's there. It's a Zeiss Labs at location. You've got some of the best techniques, and the team
is great
and lovely.
Yes,
I
would, and extremely competent. Yeah. It's a nice combination that the people I work with are extremely welcoming and friendly, but also very good at their jobs. They're not just great people, they're also great scientists. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, a couple of times you've already alluded to the future and you don't know what the future is going to bring. What are your future goals?
I really love being in a core facility. I really like supporting science and research, and I'd like to really catalyze the core here to do more of this and to do more, as much as we possibly can, for the community here that needs it. So is it just VIB, or can we support, other scientists in the area, even industry? How can we help? In all ways, I really think a core's role is to catalyze the research around them in any possible way. So that's my professional goal. It's also to really help find excellent roles for the members of my team. They're really good professionals. They deserve to be recognized, and they also deserve to be seen on an international stage. So how can I promote them as individuals? We're going to go as a little pack to ELMI, and I'm looking forward to this. So, it's not just the heads. We're going to go as a team. I'm really looking forward to the future collaboration with Leuven as well, because the two cores have been a bit separate, and we're going to really bring this together. So another gentleman who you should interview, Pete, Pablo, is going to join the core in Leuven in May as the new head, and he's phenomenal. So we're going to have a great time working towards this.
Now, where was Pablo before? I know Pablo.
Stockholm.
Thank you.
No, I just lied to you. Copenhagen. Sorry about that.
Copenhagen. Yeah, because he's out of the Copenhagen group. No, I know Pablo already. So
you should put him on your list. He's great.
How many of you coming to ELMI? A pack of you?
I think 5. 6. 3 from Ghent and 3 from Leuven.
Cool. So that would really help. You must make sure you have some time. Do you know, a really good thing that I've done with my team in the past is have pre-drinks.
Oh, yes.
And just bring them together, maybe invite 1 or 2 guests to join us and have a drink, and then join everyone else. So it just gets the team together, because once you're in the big event, everything
It's a
takes over.
jumble.
And you know what it's
That's a good
like, and
idea.
you're going to be in high demand. People are going. Actually, this is interesting. Elm is a very different community to your normal community. There'll be a few electron microscopists there, but not so many. You know, usually you'll go to a conference and everyone will know you.
Yeah,
And
because of
lots of
my
people come and
seminars.
have
It's
you
going to
thought
be
about what
fun.
it's going to be different for you? It's going to be, you know, have you thought about what that's going to be like, where actually suddenly you'll know a few people, but not tons of people?
I know, but it's really cool, actually. I can ask all the dumb questions I want, and no one will know who I am.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
perfect.
there.
Oh, don't tell them, okay, Peach? The
They're
problem,
just like the EM community, they're super welcoming. So
the
and it's a great meeting to come and network with people
yeah.
itself. Uh, most fun time in your career? You know, you've had some challenging times, but and maybe they are also difficult. Challenging and difficult can be two different things. But what about the most fun time in your career?
I think it was it was partially challenging, but it was really fun to build a core facility from zero. And that's what I did in Portugal. I really brought together equipment and teams and people and did a lot of training of the community. And I was constantly building in the 10 years I was in Portugal. And that was a lot of fun. It was part of the reason it was hard to say goodbye. It was my baby. But it was good. It was cool.
And you know, a go-getter, maybe not the right term. You know, someone said if you don't ask, you don't get. You don't get anywhere if you don't go for. You know, if you don't get what you don't apply for, I think was your phrase earlier on. And interestingly, I don't think you stopped at building your own core. You also helped then on the national network in the national, starting to politic for funding nationally, if I'm right.
Yep. And
So,
this was interesting. You know, we really pushed the envelope of what could be done in Portugal. I would have loved to have done more. Portugal has a deficit of investment in science. And so this is the real challenge there. The scientists in Portugal do really amazing things without much. They have this fabulous saying of making eggs without an omelet. And unfortunately, the Portuguese are good at this. They do amazing science with very few resources. But we still managed to get a cryo EM installed. The one and only one is installed in the north of Portugal. That was a 6-year fight at all levels.
that's a structural
Yes,
cryo.
I know. Even though I mock cryo EM, I negotiated the microscope. So, you know, I may say cheeky things, but I will always help.
So there's some fun times.
Definite fun times.
Any regrets in your career?
No, and well, I wouldn't go horseback riding on September 23rd, 2017 if I could redo that day. But otherwise, you know, even though this accident was a nightmare, even that, I think I'm a better version of me. I'm a kinder human, a more aware person, and I hope to say even a better leader because I understand a struggle at a whole different level. So no regrets.
This is a bizarre question. Do you think it's helped your career in an odd way?
Um, I think people respected me before I had my accident, but when they saw how I managed my accident and how I refused to give up, they see me in a different light. They see me not just as a microscopist, but as someone who is really stubborn in probably a positive way. So some could say yes. I think the thing that probably gave me the most notoriety was the Tech EM seminars that I started, where now these seminars are quite famous and many EM people come. And for that reason, I'm fairly well known in the community. And those were just an accident as well.
But you, again, you created the opportunity, you created the initiative, and you've pushed it forward on that side. So you've influenced by having your own core, developing your core. You then influenced more nationally on getting funding, being the cryo-EM. You then started those meetings, which again gives more impact and bringing communities together and everything else.
And then I won a fancy prize for it, which was really nice.
So what was the prize?
I was the RMS award for electron microscopy. And it was fantastic. It was such an honor to win this award. And what a privilege. I know you were part of this process, so thank you very much.
So I'm fortunate to be president of the Royal Microscopical Society, but you know what? This is people nominate from outside and come in. So this was nominations that come in. So I think that shows if you're nominated, it's a real credit from the community that someone's taken time, written it up, put the case, put it forward,
Yeah.
judged against others and awarded. So really big congratulations.
Thank you very much. That meant a lot to me. And that award also meant a lot because I think a lot of the recognition I had received was for things I had done after my accident. And somehow this validated to me that even though I now have a disability and I'm a turtle, I can still do really good stuff. And it's seen and I would say respected and appreciated by the community. And that meant a lot.
Yeah, because this was for your community, your EM expertise. It wasn't anything to do with your injuries and going through. But I've heard you talk. I missed the MMC talk because I couldn't attend the MMC talk for reasons I'll go into later. But I had so many people saying how inspiring it was afterwards. Some of my team were in that meeting. They were talking, oh my God, that was so inspiring. It was possibly one of the most memorable talks at MMC for a long, long time.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you.
I know. And so again,
I was very proud because I don't think I cried. Very often when I talk about my accident, I cry at some point, and I thought, oh gosh, don't cry in front of 200 people. But I managed to hold it together.
But I think close to 400 actually in
Really?
the venue.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
So it was big at that point. But you say that, but again, one of the flip sides is you've been able to use that to inspire other people and to influence other people.
That's a gift in a way. And I think that that's just attitude. I refuse to let this get in my way. I'm going to find the silver lining. So if I can make other people's journeys easier, let's do it.
But again, positive attitude to adversity. Well, what many would see adversity and maybe feel very down and negative spiral. You've taken the opposite approach, which itself is inspirational. Through all this, the one thing I haven't asked you, and this may now have changed. You talked about running, you talked about hiking before the accident. There's still lots of stresses. You're going to have lots of stresses at work. You've got lots of strong characters, lots of academics. You're going to have to get the Leuven-Ghent relationship with Pablo working well and everything. You're going to have to deal with Gert up at the top, and oh wow, he's great. But
he's great.
You're going to have all these you're going to have problems going forward. What hobbies do you now have? That you're not running now.
No.
I know you have gone for a hike, small hikes, but it's difficult. So what are your hobbies to relieve the stresses at the end of the day?
So if there's a contest who dies with the most craft supplies, I'm already a strong contender in this contest. I do a lot. And this is why I don't watch TV. TV is not the hobby. I'm doing something. So I love to garden. During the pandemic, I started gardening like crazy. And at some point I had about 100 kilograms of tomatoes because I was quite successful in my gardening. So then I learned how to do canning and I do a lot of cooking. I like baking. I wouldn't call it a hobby, but I still find the release and the relaxation of physio. So, doing sports, lifting weights. Yesterday, I was doing my leg exercises, and I have to admit, it was something like one exercise, small nap, another exercise. So it was a very long physio session because I kept just kind of chilling out, listening to music in the middle. I enjoy wine tasting and going out and exploring food at restaurants, traveling, photography. I will try again and get out my big camera. It's heavy, so I'm not sure how I can do with my balance, but that's one of the things I'd like to try and start again here in Belgium.
Okay.
I don't sit still, Pete.
No, nor me.
No.
As I'm twitching. Yeah. Always. Erin, we are up to the hour. So
it doesn't take long, does it?
No. And thank you very much for joining me today. Thank
You're
you for being an inspiration to many. Thank you for your influence in the market. I wish you the very best of luck. And Ghent has some of the best microscopy resources globally. That facility is to be envied. And you've walked into an amazing resource. And they now have an inspirational leader
thank you.
Following in the footsteps to really, again, take it forward. Every leader has to take it forward, and I'm sure you'll succeed in that. I think the team will love having you around. Everyone who's listened, watched, there's lots of people we referred to in it, but go back, look at the back catalogue, but don't forget to subscribe to the channel itself. I have to say that. whichever one. This is probably worth looking at a couple of the photos. If you've been listening, go and look at the YouTube and have a look at some of the NASA pictures, which are awesome. But Erin, I cannot wait to see you soon. I'm sorry I cannot be at the next meeting, but you'll be at ELMI. So we'll catch up at ELMI, and we'll be catching up a lot anyway. So,
Sounds fabulous. Thank you so much, Pete.
Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to The Microscopists, a bite-sized bio podcast sponsored by Zeiss Microscopy. To view all audio and video recordings from this series, please visit bitesizebio.com/the-microscopists.